Alright, this morning I have decided that I'm going to make a cover for a book to keep all of my bard songs in. I'm a member of the Society for Creative Anachronism, and I participate in bardic competitions. That's the songwriting and storytelling, things like that, in medieval and Renaissance reenactment. Today I've decided I'm going to make a cover for a journal to keep my songs and poetry in. So when I'm standing and performing these, I have something that looks more authentic and period. I had to record the audio voiceover separately. I'm having some trouble with voiceover things in my recording today. So if the voice doesn't seem to match up with what's going on the page, my apologies. This is my first try. We're going to do this right. Alright, I started with a piece of plain cardstock, and I'm going to paint it with some homemade gesso that I've made and colored. The gesso is made up of a few different types of glue, some tacky glue, some school glue, some Modge Podge, and some talcum powder and a little water. And then I used some of my acrylic paints from the Dollar Tree to color it a nice shade of brown. I made mud, and I'll show you the color here. You take off the lid. It's mud. It's in that glue bottle because that's the bottle I had. It was easier for shaking. As I said, I used some of my acrylic paints. All my supplies come from the Dollar Tree because I'm a excuse me, I'm a low budget crafter and I do anything with nothing. So let's get right into this. First, I'm going to take my brown gesso that I've made and I'm going to paint it on my cardstock. And I'm not worried about grain lines or making it look pretty or finished or anything like that. I'm just getting the gesso on the paper. I'm using the gesso because of the texture, but also just to glue things together. Like I said, this is going to be a cover for my bardic journal. I really enjoy being a bard in the SCA. I love standing up in front of people and singing. I usually do my own original material. And if you noticed, pardon me, my channel is mostly made up of music videos right now. Those are self-composed and produced. I have 3 different names I produce under. The first one's Pearl Manhattan. She does my vocal jazz and blues. Then there's the Maggie Road Revival, which is singer-songwriter and folk style. That's a lot of my mental health recovery songs. And then Armadillos After Dark is my electronic music. As I've shared in a couple groups, Armadillos After Dark has just released their second album. I use a distributor called DistroKid, and what happens is I send my album up to DistroKid, and DistroKid sends it out basically to the world. It's on all. It will be on all of the major streaming platforms August the 3rd, and on Amazon. And if you're interested, there are some links on my page, and also you can just go to Amazon or Spotify or Pandora or any of your streaming venues, and you can search for Armadillos After Dark, and the latest album is Music for Places. Their first album is Music for Things. Now, what I'm doing, I have a piece of tissue paper that I got from the gift wrap section at Dollar Tree. It's just plain old tissue paper, gift wrap tissue, and in this package there was 2 colors. There was this gold color, and then there was a white and gold striped. And I'm going to put some more gesso here on this cardstock, and then I'm going to crinkle up that tissue paper very, very tightly and then straighten it out and lay it on top of this brown gesso that I have. And I'm not worried about wrinkles. In fact, I like the wrinkles. I like the texture that it gives. And there's going to be a couple layers here, so it's going to get very, very textured. But I believe animal skin is not, if you're curing animal skin out in the wild back in the medieval times, there's going to be imperfections and there's going to be character to the skin. So I'm not too concerned about making this smooth and beautiful. It's supposed to look rough. And there I'm taking more of the gesso and putting it on top of the tissue paper on top of the cardstock. And I think I'm going to speed this part of the video up, and because like I said, I'm having some trouble with the audio. The original audio that goes with this video, I was rambling on about all sorts of things. So I'm going to speed this up and take you through the 3 layers of tissue paper I did, and I will come back and tell you more about the video later. And welcome back. I've got 3 layers of the tissue paper on here, and I got a little aggressive with the brush and ripped a little bit of the top layer, but as you see, I just take a sponge and kind of a dry sponge, kind of poke it all back together there. It just adds to the character of the piece. And it is on the edge. Now I'm just taking some regular Modge Podge, again from the Dollar Tree. Everything I use comes from the Dollar Tree. And I'm pouring it into the little container that I was using my brown gesso in, and I'm mixing that up. This is because the next layer is a layer of waxed paper, and I want to make sure it sticks really, really tight. So I'm mixing that up, and here I go. You can see the Modge Podge. Just dabbing it on like I dabbed everything else on. And I'm going to go ahead and speed this up, I believe, and then I'll be back when I'm laying down the waxed paper. Okay, now that I have a thick layer of that Modge Podge on top, I lay down my sheet of waxed paper. This is regular wax paper from the Dollar Tree. You can get it on the aisle with the aluminum foil and storage bags, I believe. And what I have is a kitchen sponge that I've cut into small pieces, and I'm using that to push down on the wax paper and give it even more texture. I want a real rough and bumpy texture on this. I don't want it all smoothed out. I want my bubbles and my lines. So I'm going to continue to push it down with the sponge. And of course, large bubbles, I'm going to work those out to the edge. And you'll see I come up with some large bubbles here in a minute. And I take my hand and I will press those out gently. Like I said, I use the sponge to give it some texture to start with. But I do prefer working with my bare hands. I like to feel what I'm working with. And so in a minute I will put down the sponge and use my hands, and I will work the bubbles out. Now I'm going to apply another layer of the Modge Podge brown gesso mixture on top of the waxed paper. And I'll speed this up and come back when I'm done with that. All right, I finished that layer of Mod Podge on top of the wax paper, and I used my heat gun. Actually, it's a blow dryer, a hair blow dryer. But I put the heat gun on it and got a lot of the moisture out of it, flipped it over and got the underside of the cardstock, dried that out a bit. Now I'm going back with my fingers and I am working the little bubbles, the air bubbles and the wrinkles out with my fingers. Because this is very fragile with 4 layers of very glue soaked paper. It's very fragile and I don't want to tear it or rip it. So I'm just gently rolling my finger across and knocking all the bubbles, the large bubbles, out. In some cases I'm making wrinkles, but I feel that would be a feature, not a detriment to my cover. I've run the heat gun over it and put another layer of Mod Podge and then ran the heat gun some more, flipped it over, dried out the cardstock on the back, and trimmed up the edges, all the excess tissue paper, wax paper that was around the edges. This is where I leave you today. We'll be back tomorrow with another video, a continuation of where we go from here. But I think for a day's work, it's looking pretty natural and leathery. Thank you for watching my videos. If you enjoyed this video, please click like button, give me a thumbs up, and then be sure to subscribe to my channel and click the bell so you can get updates when I upload more videos. Check out my music videos, and if you like what you hear, go check out my albums online. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.